Welcome to another episode of the Project S.A.F.E series. S.A.F.E meaning Seniors Against Financial Exploitation. This educational program has been designed to help seniors and their adult children keep their money safe from scammers and from those people who would like to take it away from you. In New York, specifically, approximately $3 to $5 billion is taken each year from seniors. Nationally, it's somewhere between 15 to 25 billion, but there's actually no accurate record. These programs are designed to bring you the tools necessary to protect yourself and your family. I'm John Ryan. This is my partner, Peter Janowsky. And today, we're going to be talking with Carol O'Neill, who is from the EAC network. Hello, Carol.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I want you to start off by telling us a little about EAC and how you got involved.
Sure. EAC is a very large not-for-profit human service agency, and we actually started in the Port Washington School District in 1969 when a group of women saw that there were children in that school district who needed education outside of the traditional school education. That was our humble beginnings.
Okay.
And from there, we leapfrogged over the years until at this point in time, we have over 80 programs that cover all people who need help, vulnerable populations. And generally, the programs that we provide for all different populations are not cookie cutter. They're not there already. They're things that have somehow been left out of the mix, and they really meet the unmet needs of people. So today, EAC Network, next year actually, in 2019, we're going to be celebrating 50 years of providing this valuable service. So we're established not just on Long Island, but we have programs in the greater metropolitan area, the 5 boroughs, and Westchester County and Rockland counties as well. And today, really, I'm going to be focusing in on the senior programs, because those are the programs that really are more targeted to what today's topic is all about.
Great.
So you want to hear a little bit about how I became involved?
How did you get in the middle of this?
Okay, so I'm a social worker, and I started off after my children were in actually elementary school, junior high school. I wanted to be in the helping professions, and I was leaning towards nursing. And I started off there, and I started actually at Nassau Community College, and after I took a whole year of intensive math and science, I decided this wasn't for me. I wanted to help people, but in a different way. And I had a wonderful professor who really, nurtured me and pointed me towards social work. And during that period, I have a bachelor's degree, and I have a master's degree in social work, and I also have certifications in geriatric health care. It's always been my love. It's always been my mission to do things, and partly because in my own family, I've been a caregiver. Okay. So I can relate to many of the people who have issues today, especially in today's world where everything's so fast-paced. Right. So that caregiving, seniors, and nutrition are really what my focus has been over the years.
Great. The one thing I always say is I like talking to people who own what they do. It's not a matter of, I took a job because it's paying $5,000 more than my other job. This you wanted to do. Exactly. So everything that you're putting forth, is from the heart. Exactly. It's what you want to do, which is great, so terrific.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why EAC Network's programs are so successful, and not just for the senior programs, but all of our programs, is that the people who work for us, and they come from all disciplines depending upon the population we're working. So for the senior population, we're really talking mostly nurses, social workers, and registered dietitians. And they come from a background of not only just helping people, but really caring about people. Right. And they want to help people because they themselves, in many instances, have really been through an awful lot in terms of looking for services for themselves. Okay. So they quite understand it, and you would think it's almost like you're a car salesman, and someone comes to you and they want to buy a car, and you can't help them because all of the resources that you know about are dead ends. Right. And the same thing happens in human services. There are a tremendous number of all kinds of services in the not-for-profit and the for-profit world. They don't fit every size. I agree. And many of them are extremely expensive. So it's always a challenge when you're looking to help people is to really listen to them and find out what kind of help they're really looking for. and to see if you could help them find just the right. It's almost like Angie's List,
Okay,
but not
okay,
quite.
right.
You know,
Actually, what's the phone number to call? The point is, and the big thing from this program is people go looking for help, and they wind up being taken advantage of. They go to the wrong place, and all of a sudden I'll say, wait a minute, lady, this is what you're looking for? Well, you know, I can do it, and they charge ridiculous amounts of money. They don't come across correctly. What's the EAC phone number? So people can start there. I believe in starting with the places that have already been vetted and are, you know, 50-year history. You've been around, and you're doing the right job.
Certainly have. Okay, so our main phone number is 516-539-0150, and the extension to call for either Meals on Wheels or respite program is either 219, which is Barbara, or 218, which is Chris.
Okay.
But the main number will get you a knowledgeable person who could direct you, whatever it is that you're looking for.
That's the point. So when they call that
Yes.
number and say, listen, I'm looking
Absolutely.
for a babysitter, you don't have a babysitting service. But that's fine. They'll say, okay, but you
Exactly.
try. And that's the most important thing.
Exactly.
Let's start on Meals on Wheels.
Okay, so Meals on Wheels is something that we think has been around an awful long time in the United States. Actually, it started in Great Britain. During the war, with all of the bombings, especially in England, there was just almost no place to get food. So the government thought of a program for everyone, not just for a certain age group, to provide meals for those people because there was no way of getting any kind of food into England. It was just bombed beyond recognition in many instances. So in 1946, after the war, someone in government had a brilliant idea that really was brilliant and brought it over into the United States, and they looked at it and they said this would be great for people who were 60 years of age or older. And that's how it started. It had its humble beginnings there. And the whole reason behind Meals on Wheels, it has no financial criteria to it. It's based on the person's inability to shop or cook for themselves and not have someone to do it for them. So it's really very simple. It's not a difficult program to get. And it's a really simple process. What we do in all of the Meals on Wheels programs, EAC Network's Meals on Wheels program is the largest provider of Meals on Wheels in Nassau County. There's another provider, Catholic Charities, that's just as good as we are, and we work
The sauce is not as good.
we work very collaboratively together, so that
Well, you overlap, obviously.
we overlap and we work together,
Right.
and our mission is the same. We really need to find those people. Believe it or not, it's really hard. You would think everyone knows about Meals on Wheels, but they really don't know who to reach out for. So sometimes, as you said before, people are looking for service.
Right, it's like you don't know about it until the need occurs, and then all of a sudden you have to scramble.
Exactly. So we get the majority of our referrals from hospital dish planners, from rehabilitation centers, where people obviously go after they've had some sort of medical issue, and then they go home. But when they go home, it's a different place for them, because they may not have the same ability. If they had a stroke, if they fractured an arm or a leg, they can't really do the things they did before.
Right.
So it's really critical that people understand that we're there. You can make a referral through a social worker at any agency, and a self-referral. Family members can call. We get some referrals from houses of worship, which is another place that people turn to when they need help.
Right.
And again, for the most part, people really, especially when they're in crisis. I mean, imagine you're 86 years old, you live alone, you never married, and you don't have children. You have a stroke that has left you perhaps with the inability to use your right or your left arm, and maybe you're not thinking too clearly. You get discharged from a hospital, you really are not eligible for home care under Medicare, so you'll get a visiting nurse come to see you a couple of times and maybe a home health aide for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're cut loose.
All right, I agree.
And here you are. You don't have food in the house. You might not even know your neighbors anymore because the neighborhoods change rapidly. So they're really left to their own devices.
Right. Well, Peter had that.
I'll tell you, I was going to interject a quick story. In my early 20s, Meals on Wheels was a lifesaver for me because I was a caregiver. My father had cancer. My mother didn't drive. I'm an only child, and my grandmother was alone in Brooklyn, about 40 miles away. So I was working during the day,
He
going
was
to
living
school.
in Queens.
Yeah, I was living in Queens, I'm
Right.
sorry. I was going to school at night, and I would visit her, 2 or 3 times a week. But, she was starting to get on in age. Senility was setting in, and I lived in a very small apartment. At the end, I actually moved her into my bedroom when I moved out. But we also had Meals on Wheels, and not just delivering food for her, but it was also someone checking in. Just like you said, the neighbors get old too, and she had friends in the building, but unfortunately they were moving out, they were dying. It was a not normal cycle of life, and they were a lifesaver for me. Just someone knocking on the door and checking in on them. It was tremendous.
And that's really what our story is all about. It hasn't changed that much
Right.
for when you were 20 years old.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that as families, we all want to take care of each other. There comes a time when that isn't possible.
Right.
Or if I said before, if for some reason you are living alone, you never married, or your friends in your family have all moved away or died, who is going to look in on you?
Right.
Who knows that you have that need? And
But even if you married and have children,
yes,
the children only go through this once or twice. You have 2 parents. So this
Exactly.
is not like an everyday thing that all of a sudden
No.
when it happens, and even a married couple has 4 parents, in-laws, one dies, one, like when you put these packages together, you may only have to work with 1 parent. Now you're 65 years old, you're lost because you've
Exactly.
never dealt with it and you never paid attention. That's why shows like this are so important, because pass it on. I tell everybody, just if you pay attention, you may not need it today, but you may know somebody who does. And that's the
Exactly.
whole thing Peter and I
Planning.
talk about.
It's planning.
It's communication. It's just sitting at a table like this, and I'll say, I didn't know that existed.
Right.
And here it's a wonderful
right.
opportunity.
And it's so easy to get. Meals on Wheels today is the only program, because there's no financial need attached to it, that it's almost instant in most cases.
Wow.
Right.
So you don't really have to be on a waiting list. And I always say, when I go around to government sources, whether it be New York State, where the money comes from, actually the money to fund Meals on Wheels comes from the federal government through New York State, and it goes to Nassau County, to the Nassau County Office for the Aging, where it's distributed to agencies like mine and Catholic Charities. And we do that. So
Just one question. I'm sorry.
Sure. So I always say to people, when I'm out there groveling for more money for
Right.
Meals on Wheels, which is often, when you're 90 years old and you're old and you're sick, even one day is too long to wait for meals.
I
Oh
agree.
gosh, yes, absolutely.
And I'm hoping that, when we do this, that we touch, people's hearts who hold the purse strings.
Right.
Because it's really important.
When we talked about the food comes frozen now, right? Am I right?
There are different ways that the food, the type of food goes to people. What we're looking at is, because there are so many people in Nassau County alone that need this service, we do have a hot food component of the program that we're starting to taper down a little bit, simply because if I deliver hot food to you, first of all, we only have a 2-hour window to get it to you from where we picked it up,
Right.
which is really, and no matter what time we bring it to
With
you,
traffic on Long Island today,
Exactly,
and you have 4 or
especially-
5 drop-offs.
it's very difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we get it to you. Supposing you're on a schedule where you're getting your hot meal at 11 o'clock in the morning, you probably don't want to eat it at 11 o'clock
Right,
in the
right,
morning. So we hope that you put it in the refrigerator and keep the food safe and then rewarm it, but we're not the food police, so we don't
Right.
know that.
Right.
And there are also an awful lot of people out there who are going for chemotherapy, who are on dialysis, who are needing to go to their appointments more than once a week.
Right.
With dialysis, it's at least 3 days a week. And then when you come back from your chemo and back from your dialysis, you're really not hungry. Your
Right, that's
appetite
true.
isn't
Yeah.
there. So what we've found, and we've consulted with dietitians and physicians on this, is that the frozen meal, food that has already been prepared fresh and then flash frozen, is really the best alternative for people, because they can eat it when they want to eat
I
it.
agree. No, I think that's a great idea.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah,
the
sure.
physical part of it, where's,
Yeah.
where's the food donated, prepared, delivered? I'm very curious about that.
Okay, so it's really in many, many locations, so that we get some of our food from some of our local hospitals, and that's where the hot food comes from.
Okay.
And so it's prepared there. It's put into insulated, heated containers, because we have to keep the temperatures up. And it's delivered by some people are volunteers, some people are paid drivers. So we have a whole bunch of people who are helping us out, which is another need that we have that we could talk about later on.
Right, okay.
So that we also get food from some caterers. We have a caterer
okay.
that provides kosher food, which
Okay.
makes sense.
Right, right.
Because kosher food, if you buy it from another source, it's extremely expensive because of the nature of keeping the food kosher. So we have a kosher caterer, we have a non-kosher caterer, and as I said, for those people who are on dialysis and who have special diets that we can address, we'll probably get it from the hospital in
Okay.
those particular cases.
Actually, I'm going to give out Carol's phone number again.
Sure.
It's 516-539-0150, extension 219 or 218. For Meals on Wheels is 219. For Respite is 218. And I'm using this because time is limited to get a segue into Respite.
Sure.
And Respite is very important. It's tremendous, and that's one that concerns me. Again, we talk about scams and seniors against financial exploitation. I don't want people going in, we talk on other shows, taking a name off a bulletin board in a supermarket, seeing something in the penny saver, and calling that person to come and take care of my mother, whether the person is calling themselves or the adult child, from another state. And it happens. I know mommy needs somebody, so I'm going to call from, I'm living in Florida though. And then just hell breaks loose. EAC has a respite program, which,
Has been vetted.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, our respite program, and we changed the name. Respite is a difficult word. If I say Meals on Wheels to you, obviously
Yeah.
everybody goes, I know what that is. Respite is a French word meaning a break, a little bit of a
really?
breather.
Okay.
Yeah. So we changed it to in-home respite services because we're giving people a clue as to what they
okay,
can expect. And
okay.
sometimes that's needed because many times in the health services profession, we use acronyms. We use words that are not familiar to everyone in the general population, and a program is no good unless you can find it. So we're
Right,
trying
right.
to make it as easy and as user-friendly as possible. With Respite, it's a little bit different than the Meals on Wheels program because there needs to be a caregiver, whether that caregiver resides in the home
Right.
or like you were a caregiver who came every day or every other day to help out your grandmother. So those are the kinds of people that we help. The Respite program has been around for 32 years, and it was one of the first senior programs that EAC Network brought into its organization in 1986.
Okay.
So it's really based on how can we help that caregiver. That family caregivers today are stressed. They come in all sizes and colors and ages. And just imagine for a second what you described, in your 20s still exists today, where you have people who are working 2 jobs because it's necessary.
Right.
You have people who are adult children. So if mom is 86, you're probably going to be in your 70s. So
Right,
you're
right.
no spring chicken yourself. And it's really difficult to take care of someone who has specific needs. We don't provide personal care. What we do is we provide that caregiver with a break, time off with a competent person coming into their home so that they could feel relief and comfort knowing that they can go out and do what they have to do. And sometimes, and I shouldn't say sometimes, it's really most of the times, caregivers take wonderful care of that older person. You took, again, I'm sure your family took great care of your grandmother. They don't take care of themselves. They don't
Right,
go to the
right.
doctor. They don't go to the dentist. They don't eat right. They don't sleep right. So they also, when they are looking, let's say a pipe bursts in a house, they're susceptible to people, con artists coming in. And there's a whole bunch of people out there, especially in the spring and the summertime, who will come around and say, oh, I'm doing roofing in your area.
Yeah.
And they rip off people
Right, right,
left and right because they're vulnerable.
They can't focus. Their
can't
focus is
focus
they have
at all.
one focus in life, and that's it.
Exactly. So
can't concentrate.
what we aim to do, Respite is a 2-pronged approach. We take care of the caregiver so they can take care of themselves, and we also provide for that older person for the hours that our companion is in the home with them.
Right.
We bring the outside world into those people. Our companions can listen to a story that the caregiver has heard 1,000 times. They can find out what that older person likes to do. And I love to tell the story of the gambling nun.
I know it. Good,
That
tell it.
Our respite companions, our volunteers, come from all walks of life. There are men and
Only
women.
volunteers and no
No,
paid?
the companions are paid
Okay.
minimum wage, and the volunteers also, there is no money involved in it
Okay.
whatsoever. But again, they're only providing respite from anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, 1 or 2 days a week. It's not like home health care,
Right.
where most agencies require that they be there at least 4 hours, 3 days a week.
Right.
That isn't the service that we offer. So our companions are really wonderful people. They really are people who have a lot of hobbies. Most of them are retired. We have some younger ones. So years ago, we had a retired nun, and she came to us. And when we vet our companions and our volunteers very carefully, do strenuous background checks to make sure that
Which is that's
okay.
the whole thing I'm stressing.
The whole thing.
Because nobody's walking into that house without being qualified
Exactly.
and approved, so to speak. I'm not
Yes.
approved.
Yeah,
Definitely.
we go through a whole process, and again, it's a very thorough process because we know that this person's going into a home in the absence
So how did
of
the
a
nun
caregiver.
sneak in there then?
The nun, yeah, she had an Irish name, so
Okay,
I
okay,
just
then
let
she
her
was
in
good.
under the. So the other thing that we do is also provide training and orientation for our companions before they get matched up with a family. It's like the dating game.
Okay.
So they go through a series. You know, they fill out all the right forms. We check their background. We get references from people who are reputable people. We just don't want a reference from their second grade teacher, except for the nun. We accepted that. So they've been, thoroughly vetted before they get matched up with a family. And then Chris Weber, who is our program coordinator, what she does is she matches up a family who's requesting respite really on two things: geography and what it is that they're looking
Right.
for us to do when we go into the home. So we got a call one time from a caregiver who was a woman, and her husband was in his 70s, and the one thing that he missed so much was someone who could talk sports to him. He loved to bet on the horses. That was his thing. He watched it on TV, but he was surrounded by women, his wife, his daughter, all sorts of women. There were no men in the picture, and he was really hungry for that. So we weren't able to satisfy that male piece of it, but we were able to put in, I think her name was Sister Grace, and she loved the horses. She loved betting. She was very competitive. She followed it. Well, you wouldn't believe the look on his face when they first got together. It was amazing. We just slowly backed out of the room because one of the things we do is we personally bring over that respite worker, whether they be a companion or a volunteer, to see how it's going with the
Yeah, of
family.
course.
Do they match up? Is this going to work for you and everything? We didn't stay there very long. We just said, this is a miracle. This was really wonderful. And for him, it was wonderful because there was a twinkle in his eye that wasn't there before. And for his wife, she had such confidence knowing that he was engaged. He wasn't just sitting there watching TV. He was engaged. His brain was working once again.
And most importantly, when she gambled, did she win? Did she make them money?
She never used real money.
Okay.
But you referred to it as
Yeah.
the dating game, but that's so important.
It is.
Because again, you're taking somebody off the street, they walk into the house, there's nothing in common,
Exactly.
you're uncomfortable. Here, for an adult child to say, you've matched mommy or
Exactly.
your father with somebody that, whether you're talking sports or maybe the arts or theater or something.
Gosh, they do that with pets these days. When you're going to rescue an animal, they'll bring the
Absolutely.
pet into the home for a few days to make sure it's a match before.
Oh, really?
Same thing, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
makes a lot
realize
of
that.
sense. It makes
Right.
more sense with humans.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very difficult today because there are wonderful home care agencies out there that are for-profit, and they do the best that they can do, but because we're smaller, and we're almost like a concierge service.
Right.
So we're not doing large groups of people. We don't have a magic number that we have to meet. So we take the time because we know that the time taken in the beginning is well worth it, because our respite matches are really good matches, and they're there.
Right,
When we
right,
match
okay.
up a family, that's usually it. I mean, there are some times we're down the road, there may be a scheduling difficulty and we have to change, but
Okay.
that's okay. But 98% of our matches are really matches that are made in heaven, so to speak.
That's wonderful.
You know?
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you 100% because this is, Rosalind Carter has a couple of books. One I just took
Yeah.
recently. I haven't read it yet. But I know she goes through this whole thing with caregivers. You're either going to be a caregiver, you are a caregiver, you're going to need a caregiver. I mean,
Exactly.
everybody is involved somehow in the caregiving world.
Yeah.
But for the caregiver, it's exhausting.
It is
And the lack
exhausting.
of sleep and the lack of, because you're getting up and it's almost like having a child again. You know, you're getting up with the infant, but the whole day, you never have the break because the person's always.
The mental wear and tear, you feel very
Right.
alone.
You did it.
You feel very
Yes.
alone, and it's not easy something to talk
No.
about. It's not something you're going to advertise, and it's why put your complaints and burdens on someone else? No one wants to hear it, unfortunately.
And the nice thing about both of the programs, both Meals on Wheels and Respite, is that we're in the home.
Right on. Well,
So if something is going on, if that caregiver is so stressed, we notice a difference in that person's behavior. And really, we're there to help them lower their level of stress. We always suggest to them there are wonderful ways to do this. Usually our nurse, when she goes into the home, she does a really thorough assessment, not just of the older person, but of the caregiver. And there are so many things out there that they can do. They don't have to leave the home to do it. They can watch TV, they can watch YouTube. There's, yoga, there's Tai Chi, there's all sorts of exercises that you could do. But the main thing is they have to give themselves permission to do it.
I agree.
They have to, take 10, 15 minutes at the beginning.
Right.
This is for you. It's just like when you have a young child. Many young mothers are so overwhelmed because the baby is constantly demanding. But if they don't take that time, learn to nap when your child naps, they're not going to be able to be effective parents.
Yeah, they can't take care of anyone unless they take care of themselves.
Exactly,
Right.
and that's the message that we send to caregivers. Reach out to us. Don't wait until it's a crisis, because the majority of people wait.
Right, and then it's hard to pull back.
It's hard. We do it.
bring back, not pull back.
Exactly,
Yep.
but they may not get as much benefit from it if they started a little bit earlier. Especially with those caregivers who are caring for someone with dementia.
Well, that's-
More
That's
than
a whole nother subject.
it's a
yeah,
whole
but
nother subject.
Unfortunately, we're actually running out of time right now.
Okay,
That went fast. It was wonderful.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Carol, I want to thank you so much.
that was good.
This was on another
get my
episode of
volunteers
Project
in.
SAFE.
Right.
And if anybody would like information on Project SAFE or would like us to come into your neighborhood to do a presentation, just call.
516-719-6396. I'm Peter Janowsky. This is John Ryan. Thanks for watching.